Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. As you are well aware, Alex Neil is now the new manager for Millwall with a long-term contract, and he's bringing in his number two, Martin Canning, who seems to have followed him everywhere he's gone. Today, we are lucky to be joined by Oliver Hargreave, who runs a Preston podcast. Good afternoon, Oliver. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Don't worry. Those of you who are listening down south, we will have translation running along the bottom of the screen for you who don't understand Northern. No, I'm only taking the piss. Tell us about your show, fella. Before we get in, you might as well plug your show while we're here.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm Olly, and we run the Butter Pie podcast, a Preston North End related podcast. You may be wondering about the name, but a butter pie is a staple to Preston. You can only really find it in Preston. So we thought, hey ho, let's give a football podcast named after a pie. So yeah.
What is a butter pie?
So pretty much it's a cholesterol in a pie. So it's pastry, butter, potato, onion, and that's about it. So yeah, it's a heartburn pie really. So when you come up early February, if you're making the trip up to Deepdale, make sure you give one a try with a bit of brown sauce and gravy on top, and it's a belter. But yeah.
It sounds like we're going to have to definitely try that now. Do you know what I mean?
You'll have to give it a whirl.
Is there anywhere where you recommend near the ground for getting the best butter pie?
Or to be fair, they're all right in the ground. They've got a good supplier of butter pies recently, so they're all right. There's a couple around the city centre, but obviously it's quite a walk to the stadium. It'll be cold by then, so you might as well just get it in the stadium.
Eat it in the stand. There you go. So if you're going, make sure you send us a picture when we play Preston, so that we can see you with your butter pie. So the reason, obviously, for us doing this today is an ex-manager of yours, someone who I think Preston fans have quite highly in their hearts, is Alex Neil. I've got a few questions, but we want to run through. The idea is telling Millwall fans a little bit about what Alex Neil is from a fan's point of view. Forget all the stats and the media side of it. We want to hear the truth, what he is from you, and your thoughts. So a few questions, probably about 20 questions or so, and we'll crack on. We'll be back straight after this. So the first title what we've got is general performance. And my first question to you would be, how do you rate Alex Neil's overall tenure at Preston?
It's a bit of a roller coaster one because obviously it got off to quite a slow start, and then obviously the ending was quite poor in terms of the results base. But yeah, if you had to give an overall description, it'd probably be about an 8 out of 10. We stabilised the club. He brought in players, younger players, were able to sell them on through player trading. Brought youth through, and in the season where we thought we'd have a proper go at it, we were top of the league come November time, and he needed backing in January. Didn't get the backing, and then we ended up falling to 7th, just outside of the playoffs. And you thought, what could have been if he was backed in January? So yeah, overall I'd give him an 8 because obviously he came in, bit of a tricky start, and then obviously due to no backing in the board, it kind of just, I think he just fell out of love with it a bit and realised, is this a club for me? And then it just ended a bit sourly.
No, I get that. So did the team improve under his management then compared to the predecessor?
Yeah, Grayson did fantastically at North End, obviously, before he went to Sunderland. And when Alex Neil came in, we inherited a good squad, probably. Probably the same you could say about Millwall when he's going in. He's got a couple of good players there, especially a good couple of young players as well in Esse. So he improves them, he does, and he puts them in the limelight. He doesn't take any nonsense. He doesn't, if someone's trying to be a prima donna, he doesn't really like it. So he expects you to play with confidence. He expects you to play for the club. He expects you to play for the badge. and you'll get a lot of fight out of Alex Neil's side. You'll always go into the game, thinking you can get something from the game, and that's what I liked about Neil. He made Deepdale a fortress, and we went on a fantastic run at home where it was like 22 games unbeaten at Deepdale,
Wow.
which is fantastic. And yeah, he's one of the managers that once he gets able to, stamp his authority on the squad and the style of play, you'll really see a change. And I think Millwall fans will take a very big liking to him.
So, what were your high points? What was his high points and low points during his time in charge there?
There were some fantastic games. I think the season, obviously, where we were top of the league. I remember going down to Charlton at lunchtime, and
Boo.
we went. Yeah, I know, and we won for a Paul Gallagher penalty and sent us top. And I was thinking, this could be real. This could be the time, because it built up. We were getting high end mid-table finishes, like 9th, 8th, and I thought, we're going to have a real good go at it. And he built something. The players bought into it. The fans bought into it, and we thought, this is what we need. And we probably needed about 3 or 4 players in that January transfer window. The board gave him Scott Sinclair, and that was it. I'm not saying Scott Sinclair's a bad player, but you need more than that. And then obviously the COVID season happened. We fell away, got beaten by Luton, and then it just all fell apart, really. But yeah, that season, it was the most optimistic I've ever felt as a North End fan, to reach the Premier League finally. And yeah, we've had loads of good games, like changing it to Plan B. Went 2-0 down at home against Rovers. He brought Jane Stockley on after 30 minutes, changed it up, won 3-2 with Tom Barkhausen scoring in the 80th minute. We've got loads of games, individual games, but yeah, he brings a lot of optimism, especially when he's got his stamp.
No, that's one of the other questions I've got coming in. So, I mean, let's move on because you've raised it there. Let's move on to the playing style. What sort of football did Preston play under Alex Neil?
Probably smooth, fast counter-attacking football. He did allow teams to have more of the ball, but he expected his teams to win the ball back. Sometimes high, but also sometimes in a bit of a low block. But once you do receive the ball, he liked to have pacey wingers or quite quick front three to be able to transition from defence to attack. And it really worked against teams, especially like Leeds as well. We got some fantastic results against Leeds, and yeah, it was just really really good to watch. Especially quick transitions, nice little movements in the final third, just to try and get you into that zone. And yeah, it was terrific to watch. Some of the best football I've seen.
He plays a lot of football on the ground, doesn't he? He's
He
not
does
one for
not, yeah.
hoofball.
He's not one for hoofball, but if you do need to do that, because obviously we brought in James Stockley, kind of against the defence, he can switch to a plan B if you have a big striker. I know we brought in Stockley, who's about 6'3", just played onto him and just have wingers off him. But notoriously, he kind of likes having a pacey number 9, kind of like Langstaff.
Yeah.
I know he's not really done.
We've not
pulled up too
used
many
him to his
trees.
full potential, I don't think,
Yeah.
because if you look at him when he was at Gateshead and look at him when he was at Notts County, he has played on the wing, he has played as a number 10, and he has played as a striker. We seem to be playing him as a lone striker when that probably doesn't best suit his positioning. I think that if we were to look at putting him maybe in a number 10 or even on the wing, I think he would add so much more benefit and probably build his confidence up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the number one thing that Neil brings. He brings confidence to the players, and I think he'll definitely find, Langstaff's best position. I think Langstaff's a perfect example of who Alex Neil's going to make better at Millwall. He's got all the attributes of Alex Neil type of player. He's quick. He's got a good goal scoring record, especially at Notts County and Gateshead. And he likes to play on the last shoulder of the defenders and getting behind, and especially in counter-attacking situations. I think if you got someone like Langstaff, especially bringing with confidence, it's going to be a real problem for the rest of the Championship.
No, I agree. We've said it on the show a few times that we think that the problem, with keepers and with strikers, they're not really about skill. I mean, they need a little bit of skill, but You know, the goals don't change size in different leagues. They know exactly what they need to do, and it's
Yeah.
just adjusting to the different speed and the different style of the game. But realistically, if you can score in Division Two, or you'll be able to score in the Championship, but you just need to be able to make sure that you've got slightly different service and make sure that your positioning is slightly different. But that's learnable. But that
Mhm.
goal presence, that attack, he isn't, in the top three all time scorers currently in the Football League for nothing.
No, absolutely not. And you can see it with other players. You can take Ivan Toney, for example. He did it in League One, Championship, and Premier League.
Yeah.
It can be done as long as you've got the right manager at the helm. It can be done.
No, that's it. That's it. So again, on the playing style, did he have a specific tactical approach, or was he just flexible formation? Because you mentioned Plan B, and I think possibly the managers we've had recent, not really renowned for their Plan B, and this would be controversial, I suppose, to a degree, but I would say that their managers what don't set up necessarily to win; they set up not to lose.
Okay. Yeah. Neil always went into the game always prepared to go for the game, go for the win, and you'd go into I think almost every game, expecting probably to go either way, but you got more chance of going for the 3 points, and I felt that's positive about Neil. He always liked to set up in a 4-2-3-1, but obviously have wingers on the side who push high up, and a lot of the time, the front three. They always used to rotate around, so no one was playing a sole number 9. They were all kind of rotating around and making the best position. So, as we mentioned before, you could see Langstaff 9 out wide, etc., just kind of rotating around. So, yeah, he brought into that style that it's not necessarily position based. You're stuck here, you're stuck there. It's more about fluidity, and whichever you're able to do in the transitions from defense to attack, perfect. And yeah, always set up to nip someone on the counter and play quick, aggressive football, which it's really good on the eye when it works. Obviously, when it doesn't, and it's lost faith, it just looks like you're under the cosh 99% of the time. So there's positives and negatives, but once he's in the motion, it's a brilliant sign.
I mean, moving on. I mean, one big thing what been said by the board, recent is that they want to develop players and bring youth
Yeah,
through, make a better pathway for the youth players, so that obviously we can start selling assets and making more money, which is obviously fundamental of any football club. So,
yeah,
did Alex Neil's time at Preston? Did he improve individual players during that time?
yeah, 100%. We brought in Callum Robinson. Obviously from Aston Villa, we brought him in on a free. He developed massively under Alex Neil. He was superb, playing out wide, up top, just in the kind of rotation. Ended up selling him on for 8 million. That was about 3 or 4 years ago, which obviously is fantastic profit for the club. Jordan Hugill as well. We ended up bringing him in before Neil's tenure for about 10 50k, so really not much. And I ended up selling him on to, I'm going to mention it now, West Ham.
Boo! Cunt.
Yeah, there you go. Of 9.5 million. So I think
Wow.
Moisey did us a nice job. But 3 or 4 years ago, receiving them funds for Championship players is a really good feat. But the negative thing is it wasn't reinvested properly. Now, if it was reinvested properly, we could be having a totally different conversation. I think North End probably may have, had a real good push for the Premier League under Neil, but obviously it didn't fall apart. So he improves players massively. The main thing is if you want to play for him, at North End, we had to realise that we were a selling club to reinvest to be able to do it better. So he allows players to put themselves in the shop window. If you want to go on and do well, prove it here, and we can put you in the shop window, reinvest, and then go again. And we saw that even with Josh Earl. He brought in a left back who was playing division, no, step 9, and he came in and was superb for us, and then obviously moved on to Barnsley after the tenure. But he gives opportunities to youth players if you're old enough. Well, if you're old, it doesn't matter if you're old enough. You know what I'm trying to say, like
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah,
Fergie
yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. If you're
if you're
old
good
enough,
enough,
then
you're old enough.
yeah, you're old enough to play, sort of thing. I can't think of the word in what you're wanting, but I know what you mean. I know
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that,
and that's what he did.
I mean, that was it. I mean, there was something in his interview he did with Millwall online, the official club interview, the first interview, where he sat there and said, we've had an issue over the last few years where the manager doesn't really talk with the youth setup. And he said, he's been talking to Scott Fitzgerald, who's director of the academy and director of the youth setup, and he's been saying to him, look, I'm more than happy that if you think there's a player ready, then we get him training with us. And, and at the early part of the week, we get them training. And if they've got something about them and we think there's something about them, then we'll just bring them into our training setup. And, if we
Mm-hmm.
feel that they're actually going to give us a benefit, then we're going to play them. And that's the only way you're going to see whether or not a youngster's got something about them is when you play them. He said there's no point
100%.
not playing them and looking at them and going, well, I don't know if you're ready. The only way you can tell is by putting them in a match environment, and pretty much they'll either sink or they'll swim. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, and if they swim, then obviously they stay where they are, which, it is fantastic news for us because we've been looking. We've got some really good youngsters coming up and through the team, and a lot of the time the managers didn't want to put him in the first team, so pretty much we lost quite a few lads
Mm-hmm.
just gone. I mean, we lost a lad who, if he had development, Alex Mitchell, um, could have been a great player, maybe not, but he was never given the opportunity. We ended up selling him to
Mm-hmm.
Charlton. For next to no money. He might come back, I don't know, but we ended up getting rid of defender who probably currently we could have done with, and then at least seeing if he was good or not. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There were a couple of other questions I was going to ask, but I think you pretty much, Eddie, it was, were there any young players who thrived under his management? You sort of covered that to a degree,
Yeah.
and then obviously did
Well,
you
there was
think?
another one as well.
Go on.
Ben Davis was trying to be sold by Grayson, the centre half. He went out on loan at Fleetwood. Neil came in. I think there was already a fee agreed between the two clubs. Neil took, a couple of looks at him and said, "Not selling him." Stuck him in the first team, and then a year and a half later, he was being sold to Liverpool. So he's got an eye for young talent, and as you mentioned there, you have other managers that may not see it. Alex Neil's definitely got an eye for youth, and he gives opportunities to the players
And that's
that he
what we
believes.
need. I
Yeah,
think that's what we need because we've had a tenure of managers who like not journeymen, but like older, understood players who are dependable, know what they want. As in, I
yeah,
feel that Alex is prepared to not risk everything, but sort of make it. Um, sort of go, well, look, I'll give you a chance, go prove it. And if they prove it, then the world's their oyster. If they don't, then obviously,
absolutely.
it's back to the academy until the next time they're ready. But I read somewhere that he was saying that he don't put players out on loan without seeing them play 5 or 10 games first. He said if I
Yeah,
see them play 5 or 10 games first and feel that actually loan's the best way for them, then I'll put them out. But I won't put people out because it destroys their confidence. It destroys everything about their love for football, and it doesn't do anyone any favours. So I sort of like that with him. So yeah. So we've covered
hmm
on the player development side of it. Let's go into fan relationship. I mean, how was Alex Neil viewed by Preston fans during his tenure?
I think the large majority loved him. To be fair, obviously you always get a small minority that would say, yeah, he wasn't good. Did you see his last ending of the tenure? I mean, as mentioned, the ending wasn't the best. It kind of just petered out. You could tell the love for what was going on wasn't there. I feel like he lost motivation, and then obviously you lose a bit of fan relationships in terms of that. They only really look at the small part, the ending, which you probably should look at the whole picture. I think the large majority loved him, especially when you're looking at his second or third season at North End. It was some of the best football I've seen, in my lifetime from a North End team. And as mentioned, you make Deepdale a fortress. You get the fans coming, and that's what he did. And I think it was the best atmosphere it's been at Deepdale. It's clearly the best fan relationship that we've had in a long time. Obviously, Heckingbottom's come in now, and it's quite good again. But since Neil, we've not really had that kind of connection with a manager.
So he was
Heckingbottom's
connect.
trying to instill that.
So,
Yeah, he
so there's
was
definitely a connect with him and the fans more than a disconnect. Then I
100%,
take it.
100%. And what I don't think he's ever had. I know you mentioned media before. He's never really gone out and said anything in the media that's just been disturbed from the fans, where the fans have gone, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Everything he speaks is, he doesn't mess around. He doesn't, beat around the bush. He says it as it is, and I think fans can respect that.
Yeah.
And it felt like, we're not. He's not trying to throw us off. Fans are the core of the club, and I think Neil, understands that, and that's the main thing that he wants to get. He wants to get fans engaged, which he does. And once you've got the atmosphere, and once you make, the Den a fortress, I think you'll be kicking on really, really, really well.
No, I'll get that. I'll get that. So, did he? Obviously, when he come in, sorry, one sec. Oh, dear me, I do apologise.
Bless you.
Everyone who's listening on earphones has just been deafened. Obviously, club expectations. I mean,
Yeah.
did he meet or exceed the expectations? What the club probably wanted from him when he was appointed.
Yeah, I think it's massively. North End naturally have a bottom three wage budget. We don't pay our massive wages. We're right down below there, and for transfer fees as well, we're right down below there. But the expectation is to always do better and better. And for having us, seventh, 9th, 11th, with a bottom three budget's good going, especially for Neil. And as mentioned before, he had us top with a bottom three budget, and you see other clubs around you who have done it as well. And I feel like the best chance North End had to match what other teams have had was that third season under Neil. He just needed a bit more in terms of quality to just get us over the line. So yeah, he's gone in. He's exceeded every expectation that was of him, because you're battling relegation with that wage budget and transfer budget if you're not able to develop and bring in your own players. He's done that magnificently.
You've done this again, haven't you? You basically, I had 3 questions there to cover things, and you've answered. I asked you the first one, and in that first one, you've answered the second one. So the second one was going to be, where was there any clear signs that he could take you to the next level, which you've already said yes he could. And then the third one was, do you think that you were close to achieving Premiership? And that was there on your third season. You were top of the league and ended up finishing 7th. So if the club had reinvested properly and backed their manager, we might not be having this conversation, because you could be playing the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool every week. Or every other week, whatever it is. But yeah, you'll be playing the top lot. So next time I'm not going to send questions over.
It's all right.
So let's go on to obviously the end of his tenure. And obviously, to be fair, we've answered some of them. So what led to his departure was the fact that the club didn't back him when he needed it most for that final push towards the Premiership. So I suppose we go to one of the questions there instead of that one. We go to, do you think his tenure at Preston North End ended too soon? Or was it the right decision for him to leave?
I think in the way that it happened, because it happened early March, and you could tell after the January transfer window, which a lot of wholesale, like not normally wholesale things happen in January. I think we had 7 in, 7 out, and the core of his team got ripped out. We ended up losing Ben Pearson, Darnell Fisher, and Ben Davis in one, which are 3 main players of Alex Neil's tenures, and replaced them with loan players for the end of the season. So you could tell the motivation just was lost after that. And once a manager loses his motivation and feels like he can't take the club any further, I think it's just a waiting game, to be fair. So I feel like the time was right. You just look back at it and think, what if we backed him? What if, he was able to, continue his brand? We backed him. it's a massive what if under Alex Neil at Preston North End, and I feel like that's the main thing that's probably still in North End fans' mind is, what if under Neil. But once, as I say, the motivation's gone, you've got your core stripped out of the club. Like, if someone walked in, stripped off Tanganga, stripped off SA, and just went, yeah, loans for the rest of the season, I think he'd probably go, well, what do you expect me to do? So, yeah, the time was probably right, but the club didn't cover themselves in any glory in terms of it.
I mean, how did the club perform when he left? I mean, was it like real chalk and cheese when he left, or did you do okay? Or
Well, we brought in his assistant Frankie McAvoy, and there was nothing to play for. Neil had obviously got us to a position where we weren't battling relegation at all, and we went on a little mazy. I think we ended up losing like 5 in a row, but we went on a nice little mazy run of getting a couple of good results, which were just throwaway results, really. I think it was just, a new manager's come in, gone to the players, if you want to be here at the end of the season, show me something. And I think that was it. They were throwaway games, meaningless, and I think obviously it went poorly under Neil because it was just. I think the players realised that he lost his motivation.
yeah,
So obviously you get a new manager bounce. But I don't think the results really changed too much. And then obviously Frankie McAvoy got the sack as well early on in the next season. So not much really changed, even with an unmotivated Neil. But if you keep the motivation there, you've got a real manager on your hands.
so we come on to the final couple of questions now, and obviously comparison, I suppose, is how does he compare to other managers you've had at Preston in recent years?
He just gets it. He understands the fans. He understands the fans' expectations. He brings a real connection to the fans and to the club. He exceeds everything that you put in front of him in terms of player trading. As long as it's reinvested, you'll continue to see player improvement, better style of play, best style I've seen at North End in a long time, and it just needs the right club for him. He's been around. I know he had poor tenures at Stoke, especially, but that's a basket case of a club. Yeah. So if the club's right, if the infrastructure is right for him, and they are a club like yourselves who back him, but also allow him to reinvest if you do go on with player sales correctly, then I feel like I couldn't have actually picked a perfect manager for Millwall. He just gets it, and I feel like that's really what you need. As long as you give back to him what he gives to you, I think you'll be flying maybe not this season, but I think next season especially.
Yeah, I think it's. I think you're probably right. I think if the managers what were rumored to be, obviously, Robbins weren't interested, Cooper weren't interested, and a few of the other big names, weren't interested. They're probably on severance pay and etc. So it wasn't in their interest to come to us. The rumor is Alex Neil actually applied, put his hat in the ring for this job, which is sort of sums up something there. And if that's true, then they're fantastic. I think I agree with you. I think he's probably one of the most Millwall type managers without actually being a Millwall player.
Yeah.
And I think he will get us. I think our fans need to get used to him, that he isn't the most passionate, enthusiastic in press conference. He's renowned for telling the press absolutely nothing about injured players when they're back, how long they're out for, etc., etc. And I just think that he pretty much is like us. We don't care. We don't give a shit about people. We don't give a shit about people's thoughts of us. And I think he's very, very similar. If you read, what you read about him, talking to you, talking to others, all he's interested in is the time on the grass, and basically, win or lose, he really wants those 3 points at the end of it and success on the pitch, and also developing youth. Everything else, he don't really care. So there was a lot of debate with us as in, oh, is he a manager? Is he a coach and all that? I don't think he cares about all the back office bullshit. I think he just cares about just let me develop the players I want to develop. Let me get the youth players I want to get in, and the rest of it will work.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what I want. You get those sort of players in, and I can make them work.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you've hit it nail on. I don't think I'll probably say anything to it. It's really what he wants, and as long as you give him what he's going to give you, that's all you can do. And I think he'll be a real. Well, I think he'll be a really great addition for Millwall, and I think Preston and Millwall are probably alike in terms of maybe not club size, but in terms of the infrastructure, especially we don't play big wages, we don't splash tens of millions of pounds about like you see for Stoke or Sunderland. We don't have the greatest thing, but we expect you to exceed what obviously we're giving you, and I feel like Alex Neil brings that, and it's going to be a really good time for you, especially. I think he'll excel SA to an even bigger level than he's been playing at recently.
I hope that SA stays till the end of the season. There are rumours that
Mm-hmm.
he potentially could be going in January, but I hope that we keep him till at least the summer, and potentially next season maybe, but definitely potentially for the summer, and he can get developed by Alex and become a better player. Because I honestly don't think he's there yet with Premier. I don't think he's going to be getting the Premiership games, because I think there's still little mistakes there. But I think that he gets someone in with the right development, which I don't think there has been currently for the last couple of years from a manager who can strongly develop teams. But no, with him, I think it's exciting times. So I suppose I'm looking forward to it. I think it's good, and I think he will get backing from the board because it's a new board. It's a new chairman as such since our old one sadly passed, and I think he has a different mentality. A new CEO or a new managing director. We now have a director of football who are working on this new strategy of youth development, and selling assets to reinvest. I think that as long as all of that isn't a pie in the sky story, which I don't believe it is, and I think that if we do reinvest, I think Alex Neil could potentially do here what he couldn't actually do at Preston.
I agree. Yeah,
And I don't think it's going to happen like what you text me. It's not going to happen the first season, but maybe towards the end of the second, maybe the third season, he will get into the playoffs and he will probably win it and he
yeah.
will probably get us into the Prem. But he needs to be backed, and as long as that happens, then anything's possible. So I suppose my final question to you is: would you have him back if given the opportunity? Then not yet, not until he's got us into the Prem, but.
Obviously, when Ryan Lowe left, it was the first name that I wanted. On the podcast, I did massive backing for him to be back. I think he actually applied for Preston as well. And I feel like he applies for teams that he believes we can excel at. I'd have loved him back. I'd have absolutely loved him back. Now, Heckingbottom's done a fantastic job as well. So I'm not going to say that I'd have him back over Heckingbottom right now. But before Heckingbottom came about, he was the first name that I wanted. I'd have pulled so many trees just to get him back as North End manager, and I feel like the motivation's back. Obviously, he's had a bit of time out of football. He did fantastically well at Sunderland as well. Stoke mentioned as a basket case. He's a terrific manager. As long as the infrastructure's right, he'll take you where you want to be taken.
No, that's it. That's it. Remember, if you do want to follow Oliver, his show details are below now. And go give him a follow and have a listen at his show if you want, because no doubt they'll probably be talking about this appointment at some point on their show, or even go back to some of the old shows where they talk about him. But I can't thank you enough for this, coming on short notice, extreme short notice, but thanks very much for that. And do you have any final words you want to say, mate?
No, not really. Just good luck for the rest of the season and next season. Just not when you turn up against us.
I suppose the one there. Let's see how it goes. When he turns up back
Yeah,
at you, is he going to
yeah.
be clapped or is he going to be booed?
I'll be clapped, one hundred
Oh, will
percent.
he?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll be surprised if he don't get a standing ovation.
Really? Fucking hell.
Yeah, he's right at the top. I think of many fans' list. He had that connection with fans, and I know it went out sour, but it was sour the results. It weren't sour with the fans. He didn't come out and slander and just go like this, try to save his job. It was kind of what it was, and I feel like he's really high on fans' estimations. If you have a look at a lot of Preston North, if you have a look at retweets or etc. to the Millwall announcement of Alex Neil, you'll find a lot of Preston fans have said what a terrific appointment it is, what a fantastic appointment it is, and then you'll just see Stoke fans going, "Oh, this is a load of rubbish. Watch out." You see the difference, and he'll definitely be applauded next time he comes to Deedale.
That's good. We cunt everyone who's been at our place. So yeah, that's it. And Gary Rowett will get an absolute roasting when he comes here on New Year's Day. But hopefully Alex Neil gets to beat him because he's never beaten Gary Rowett in a professional game.
No, that's the one thing under Neil, and it's still under everyone else. Gary Rowett hate. Well, we hate Gary Rowett playing against North End. We never won against Gary Rowett. When it was Derby, Millwall. Gary Rowett was the bogey team of Preston. Obviously, Alex Neil's had a long tenure with Preston. I don't know what it is. It's just a bogey team or bogey manager, so to speak. But it'll be a good matchup, I think. I feel like it will take a bit of time under Neil. Obviously, you got the window coming at a perfect time for him, so he'll have a look at the players. I feel like he may bring in a couple in the window, and then you'll really kick on. And I expect you to obviously solidify yourself in mid-table this championship season. Allow the summer to for what he believes should be gone, should be keeping. We mentioned SA there could be sold on for you could be looking high 10 to 15 million to the Premier League, and if that's reinvested properly and you're allowed to bring in players of a higher caliber, then I think next season you could make a real surge towards the playoffs.
There you go. You heard it here first. Oliver from the Butter Pie podcast says Millwall is Premiership bound. If only. Time to put the money on there. Congratulations to all the Millwall fans who backed Alex Neil. I've seen some of you backing him at 20-1. That's a lovely little Christmas bonus for you guys. Hopefully you put a few quid on it. And that is it from us. If it's first time watching, make sure you press subscribe. Make sure you like. And everyone who makes a comment on this video will be put into a draw to win something podcast related. So it's worth making a comment. Give us your thoughts, and thanks very much. We'll see you all again later this week. Happy New Year, and we'll see you on Friday. Laters.